Welcome back to another stakes preview. Pretty busy weekend coming up here as far as the road to the Kentucky Oaks and the road to the Kentucky Derby. But Scott Shapiro and I are going to be previewing the one that is happening in our own backyard with the John Battaglia Memorial. 20 points to the winner on the road to the Kentucky Derby. And Scott, if we learned anything last year, it is not to discount the form at Turfway Park leading into the Kentucky Derby and these other races.
No doubt, Kaitlin, good for you to join me on one of these, and we'll do the same as we continue on through the Kentucky racing and the road to the Kentucky Derby. A prep, of course, for the Jeff Ruby. Last year, it was Tiz the Bomb winning the Battaglia and then going on to win the Jeff Ruby Stakes and running ninth, I believe, in the Kentucky Derby. But you were referencing Rich Strike, who also was involved in these Turfway Kentucky Derby prep races. But like you said, Kaitlin, 20 points to the winner and also 20 points on the Kentucky Derby leaderboard competition at TwinSpires, where there was a little bit of a shakeup last week with Confidence Games bringing the upset in the Rebel. Dave from Wisconsin now has the lead with 171, but I thought this was a pretty fun race. Don't know if we have any Derby winners, not even a Rich Strike in here, but should be pretty competitive and a good betting race on TwinSpires.
Absolutely. When I took a look at this race, obviously it way overfilled. We have a field of 12 plus the two also eligible, so a field of 14. And I think this race drew as good as it could have for this type of race here at Turfway Park. So I was really excited with the way this turned up. And I think you and I both, with our two top selections, they both exit the same race. So why don't you go ahead and tell me about who you have on top here?
Yeah, I thought Scooby Quando, who's only raced twice for Ben Colebrook, the first of those efforts was the win in a stakes competition at Turfway as a first-time starter. And I didn't think that was a very good field. I actually thought Scooby Quando was a horse I was going to look to maybe play against as the distances got longer and the competition got longer, because I thought it was a pretty suspect group. But he really impressed me last time out. He ran second to Wadsworth, who's been a new horse since being gelded and arriving in Florence for Brad Cox. I expect him to be the favorite or one of the favorites in the Jeff Ruby. And Scooby Quando, first try 2 turns, was basically caught wide throughout. Ended up tiring to finish second, but it wasn't that tiring of an effort because he had a little left in the lane and was able to hold off third place finisher Miranda Wrights, who's a horse I think you like in here more than me.
I do. Miranda Wrights is going to be my top selection here in this race. I looked back to that effort against Scooby Quando and Wadsworth. Scooby Quando, a horse that I'm very, very impressed with and also did really like in this race. But I did give the edge to Miranda Wrights because I thought he ran a better race than expected in that last out effort against Wadsworth. He was pretty tight around the turn. He was there on the rail and got pinched way back, almost shuffled to clear the back of the field. So had to make a lot of run there in the backstretch. And when he turned for home, he was a little wide. He was stuck on his wrong lead. Still showed a little bit of immaturity in there, but he's gotten a lot better since he's gotten that foundation under him. That's one thing I do like about him. He does have 6 races to go back on. He's improved with each and every start. So he's a horse that I think is going to keep improving with the distances. He's got some immaturities to clean up, but I think he ran a better last out race than it appears.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly has shown an affinity for the all-weather surface, has hit the board in all 3 tries, did get beat when I thought he couldn't at 4-5. So I'm holding that against him a little bit, but battled back and won the next start convincingly as the favorite. Certainly makes some sense in here. The 3-1 morning line favorite, Kaitlin, is Gilmore, who new horse here in Kentucky and a new horse in the Brendan Walsh barn after a runner-up effort in the El Camino Real Derby when I thought his effort was good but not great. What are you doing with Gilmore in here?
It's hard because the Brendan Walsh barn's not, it's kind of 50-50 with them first time with trainer. They have decent numbers, 15%. And we've seen the El Camino Real Derby winner come here the past few years, whether it be this race or the Jeff Ruby Stakes. The numbers are good, but I think they're a little bit inflated. The horse he was beat by on the square in the El Camino Real Derby, Chase the Chaos, we'll see in the San Felipe, which I'm sure we will all talk about later on. But to me, I thought it was a good effort, but I didn't think it was a great effort. So I think I'm going to be playing against it here.
Yeah, Chase the Chaos was much better than Gilmore. I mean, it was a little bit tight along the inside, but Gilmore got a good setup and just lacked punch. Who are some other horses that you have a little bit of interest in?
Honestly, the one that I have some interest in, I think the 2 also eligibles could be very dangerous for the underneath spots should they get in. But the one I'm most interested in is the 13 Ironsides. Should he get in? I thought he ran a better than appeared effort in the Leonidas Stakes last out that was won by Fantastic again. And as you talked about, Wadsworth, I think Fantastic again is going to have a lot to say in the Jeff Ruby Stakes. He doesn't show up here in this effort, going to go straight to the Jeff Ruby, I believe. But Ironsides broke his maiden 2 back in a maiden 30, was tons the best in there. Well handled by Declan Cannon, and then came back in the Leonidas Stakes, was 21-1, and was just, he was wide. He had a very sweeping trip, and he just got nosed out for a second behind Fantastic, who I hold in a very high regard. So this horse is a must use underneath for me with the form that he has showed and the affinity for the surface if he does draw in. What about you?
He'll be a good price, and he really surprised me with that effort that you spoke of in the Leonidas, the 30 coming out of a $30,000 maiden claimer. Wow, albeit he was best. Just a couple others I'll mention real quick before we wrap up. Number 2, Aristocracy is perfect 2 for 2 for Brad Cox. Interesting that Brad entered this horse for a tag, albeit a big one on debut, and won by a nose. He overcame trouble on New Year's Day. Not necessarily a pattern I love, and I found it interesting that Chris Landeros opts to ride American Speed, the other Brad Cox runner, as opposed to this one. Or maybe that was Brad and his barn's choice, but either way, American Speed should be involved early. And then I expect number 10, Bromley, to take quite a bit of support coming back to Florence after a underwhelming effort, to say the least, in the LeCompte. I mean, he was up and on the front end along with Confidence Game and Echo again that day, and the pace did fall apart, but he gave way early in that race. Maybe it's the all-weather surface, but I think he was a little bit dressed up off of that win here in the first level allowance event where the rail opened up for him at 6 furlongs. So the jury's still out for me on Bromley, and if he's one of the favorites, I'm going to play against.
I totally agree with you on Bromley. I had to take, he would be one that I would probably play against because I don't think the price will be right. But you have to look at that form with what Instant Coffee has done to Phil's Confidence Game, won the Rebel. Dennington won a very impressive allowance race. So that form obviously has to be considered with how impressive that race has been. But I'm with you. I think he's probably going to go off as a favorite, maybe ahead of Gilmore. That would just kind of be my opinion with the affinity that he's already shown for the surface. But honestly, it's a pretty wide open race if you look at it, and it's got a big field.
No doubt a great race to get involved with at TwinSpires. And I am going to play against Bromley for the reasons you mentioned, because I think that the public is going to look at those running lines in the field that he faced in the LeCompte and maybe put a little bit more money on him than I'd be willing to.
Yeah, I can certainly see that, and kind of the same reasons that I think I would maybe take a stab against. But I think that's going to wrap it up for here for us for the John Battaglia Memorial. 20 points to the winner on the road to the Kentucky Derby, and also 20 points on that leaderboard for the road to the Kentucky Derby leaderboard. So make sure you go ahead and get involved in TwinSpires.com. There's plenty more opportunity to get involved with that leaderboard, but time is ticking. We have the 50-point preps, a couple 20-point preps sprinkled in, but then we'll be getting on to the 100-point prep. So time is running out. Make sure you get involved in that. But John Battaglia Memorial, one of 4 prep races here in America this Saturday.